Symfony controller classes do not need to extend a base class. As long as your controller function returns a response object, Symfony doesn't care what your controller looks like. But usually, you will extend a class called AbstractController. Why? Because it gives us shortcut methods. And the first shortcut is render, the method for rendering a template. So return this arrow render and pass it two things. The first is the name of the template. How about vinyl/homepage.html.twig? It's not required, but it's common to have a directory with the same name as your controller class and a file name that's the same as your method, but you can do whatever. The second argument is an array of any variables that you want to pass into the template. Let's pass in a variable called title and set it to our mixtape title, PB and Jams. Done in here. Oh, but pop quiz. What do you think the render method returns? Yeah, it's the thing I keep repeating. A controller must always return a response object. Render is just a shortcut to render a template, get that string, and put it into a response object. Render returns a response. We know from earlier that when you render a template, Twig looks in the templates directory. So create a new vinyl subdirectory, and inside of that, a file called homepage.html.twig. To start, add an h1, and then print the title variable with a special Twig syntax. Curly curly title, close curly curly. And I'll add some hard-coded to-do text. Let's go see if this works. We were working on our homepage, so go there and hello Twig! Twig is one of the nicest parts of Symfony, and also one of the easiest. We're going to go through everything you need to know in basically the next 10 minutes. Twig has exactly 3 different syntaxes. If you need to print something, use curly curly. I call this the say something syntax. If I say curly curly say something, that would print a variable called say something. Once you're inside Twig, it looks a lot like JavaScript. For example, if I surround this in quotes, now I'm printing the string say something. Twig has functions, so that would call the function and print the result. So syntax number 1, the say something syntax is curly curly. The second syntax doesn't really count. It's curly brace # to create a comment. And that's it. The third and final syntax I call the do something syntax. This is when you're not printing, you're doing something in the language. Examples of doing something would be if statements, for loops, or setting variables. Let's try a for loop. Go back to the controller. I'm going to paste in a tracks list, and then pass a tracks variable into the template set to that array. Now, unlike title, tracks is an array, so we can't just print it, but we can try. Ha! That gives us an array to string conversion. Nope, we need to loop over tracks. Add a header and a UL. To loop, we'll use the do something syntax, which is curly brace %, and then the thing that you want to do, like for, if, or set. I'll show you the full list of do something tags in a minute. A for loop looks like this: for track in tracks, where tracks is the variable we're looping over, and track will be the variable inside the loop. After this, add curly brace % end for. Most do something tags have an end tag. Inside the loop, add an li, and then use the say something syntax to print track. When we try it, nice! Oh, but let's get trickier. Back in the controller, Instead of using a simple array, I'll restructure this to make each track an associative array with song and artist keys. I'll paste in that same change for the rest. What happens if we try it? We're back to the array to string conversion. When we loop, each track itself is now an array. How can we read the song and artist keys? Remember when I said that Twig looks a lot like JavaScript? Well then, it shouldn't be a surprise that the answer is track.song and track.artist. And that gets our list working. Now that we have the basics of Twig down, next, let's look at the full list of do something tags, learn about Twig filters, and tackle the all-important template inheritance system.